Hey guys, today we have from Revell of Germany the Star Wars Boba Fett Slave 1. Now this is 1 to 160 scale. It has 23 parts, and I've already taken it out of the box. Of course, you always give you some really nice color instructions to it. Looks to have some nice detail. Here we have like part of the main body here, it's split in halves. Now the one thing looking over this kit that I noticed that I didn't like is they give you a clear piece for the canopy, but for some reason they've made it to where I guess it swings open, and I don't, or maybe that just holds it in place, I'm not sure. Anyhow, I'm probably going to just remove that tab, and when it comes time I'll just use some clear part cement and glue that onto there. But I think it'll just be much easier putting it together and painting it without that on there for the moment. So, as like I said, some basic pieces, but nicely detailed. On the back, only thing about the back is it has this one, the stand, which I've already, you can tell I've already put some texture paint on this. The stand, it gives you a couple options. You can mount it like to where it's vertical, or you can do it like that to where it's horizontal. So more than likely I'm just going to go vertical on it. I'm not going to try to light this small kit. There is some room. It wouldn't be impossible to light this thing. And of course you'd have to trim out some of these sections. Here's one of the runners here. And you can see the engines and the different parts. Again, some nice crisp detail. So hopefully it'll turn out pretty nice. The trick with the Slave 1 is just getting that painting right. I've never done Slave 1, so we'll see what we can do with that. Later on, maybe down the road, I'll get a bigger one, maybe the Bandai 1/44 scale, or maybe even one of the older kits, and try to light that. But for now, I'm just going to do a build and paint of this small kit. Alright, I've put on a base coat over different sections and used some of this micro mask. As you can see, kind of put in the areas. I'm going to be painting red over this, but I want this to be trimmed out in that white area. And also on the main body, I've put this base coat of kind of this light greenish color, and then kind of masked off, and then put some micro mask on it, and then I'm going to paint over with kind of a white gray color. So we're going to get that done, and we'll see how that turns out. Alright, I've removed my mask off of these different body parts, and pretty pleased with it. There's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot more detailed painting, and of course weathering it up. To get the mask off, it recommended on the bottle of this micro mask to use like tape. So I just took some masking tape. Now I gave it plenty of time to dry, but I just took some masking tape and put on, and just kept peeling it off. Sometimes I had to kind of rub it in there, but I did a good job of removing the mask. And then once I got all that removed, I covered it all with a matte clear coat. It's kind of protect the finish. I also did a little bit of chipping effects with the sponge. I took some of this cream coat that it was a mixture of this and a light gray for the base coat, but I just used that with a little sponge to kind of break up some of the pattern a little bit, give it a little bit more detail. And did the same thing with this kind of flaring part of the body. And now I still have more detail painting. I believe this is kind of a darker gray colors. This is actually, the Slave 1 is actually a really variety of colors. There's several greens and grays and whites and things of that nature. So it's a lot of colors going on with this ship. And you can see the back of the ship I'm working on. I have the cockpit pretty much done. I might add a little bit of paint just for instrumentation, and so I'm pretty pleased with that. So he'll go inside there, and you're actually supposed to put this in first, but I'm going to have to cut away a tab to get this in there, but I don't think that'll be too much of a problem. We still have the engines to paint, and I guess this is the radar dish. Paint that and get it all together. So still have a little bit of work to do, but it's getting there. Alright, I have most of my parts pre-painted here, so I'm just going to work on assembling. There's still a lot of detail painting left to do. Some on the back, I think a little bit on the front. There are some decals that were included. I don't I'll have to see if I'm going to be using any of those. But as you can see, everything's pretty much done. We have our cockpit now installed in there with our little Boba Fett. So we're going to get this assembled, and then we can start doing the rest of the detail painting and the weathering. Alright, as you can see, I got most of it put together. Put together pretty good. It was a little tricky kind of getting these side parts in with the little wings on the side. The body snaps securely into this flaring here. There was no need to glue that, so that was nice. The windshield is not glued into place. It's kind of resting in there. And still a few parts still got put in, the engine nozzles and the radar dish. And then, of course, all that's left is do the weathering. One of my favorite parts is to do the weathering. But I'm pretty pleased with how the paint job came out. It's a lot of layering to get those paints, a lot of different colors. And so I'm just going to work on weathering. I may add a few of these decals. And I think when I come back, we'll be all finished. And we'll take a look at it. Alright, well, I'm finished with my Boba Fett Slave 1 from Star Wars, made by Revell. The scale was 1 to 160. I finished up just doing some weathering. I did some light washes. I don't think I used too many dry pastels or anything like that. Now, I did finish up when I finished with all the weathering. The paint was just a little bright. The reds and the greens were just standing up, or just a little too bright and standing out a little too much. So what I did is I took some of this bone white from Vallejo Game Air. I thinned it down a lot with some acrylic thinner, and then just sprayed a light mist over it to kind of blend all the colors and tone down the colors. And I think it really helped a lot. I think that really kind of made it, give it that worn out look, because the colors were a little too bright. Now, in retrospect, I think I have some of the colors a little off. The red still a little bit too red. I think it needs to be a little bit more of a reddish brown color. The greens here are more of a kind of an army, sage color, or something along that line, a little bit too dark green on that. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It's a nicely detailed kit for its size. You get the little Boba Fett. It goes together very well. The only thing, I didn't do any seam work on this. There's these two parts of the main body come together. I glued them together. The seam is this, there's a little bit of a line that's barely visible. It almost looks like a natural panel line, so I didn't even worry about it. The body fits into the flaring part very nice. I don't even think I glued that in there. I just press fit to get that in there. And again, you can display it two ways. You can have it this way, or you can lay it to where it's horizontal. Let's take a look at some of the back. And I just looked at some reference photos of the studio model and did kind of the best I could to mimic the paint job. There's a lot of layers to this paint job, and this is going to be good practice. I did purchase, let me put this over here. I did purchase this old AMT Slave 1. Now I believe the scale on this is 1 to 85 scale, which is basically double what the scale of this one is. And I took a little piece of the body from the AMT to kind of give you a reference of the size. And you can tell it's basically double the size. So looking forward to this one. This one now, I hope to do some lighting of the cockpit and the engines. And it's kind of nicely detailed. Only thing about this, it's one of these older models, and it's got kind of some raised detail instead of the inset panel lines. But I think it'll still be pretty nice, and we can do a lot with it, especially lots of room to light it. I'm excited about this kit. When I get to this, I'm not sure, hopefully it'll be in the near future. When I get to this kit, I bought this off eBay for a really good price. It was open and the box was damaged. Now all the parts were still in the plastic, so I didn't worry too much about that. But inside the box was a little bit of a surprise, so just stay tuned for when this video comes out. It was a pleasant surprise. I'm thinking the person who sold this wasn't aware that there was something inside here extra that I don't believe came with the kit. So anyway, be on the lookout for that video in the future. Anyway, guys, hope you've enjoyed it. It's a nice little kit to have. Really inexpensive. I think I paid less than $15. I think I paid like $10 to $12 for this kit. And it's a nice to put together, and it's nicely detailed. So anyway, guys, until next time, everybody have a good one.